Hello everyone, welcome back to Toast Gaming. Today I want to make a little bit different of a video than what I normally do. I want to cover something that I have been thinking about with a show that I've recently watched. I'm currently on my second rewatch through it, and I wanted to talk about this with y'all because this is something that once I started thinking about it, I could not get it out of my head. So, what I'm wanting to talk about, a little bit about myself. I'm a huge dinosaur fan. Ever since I was little, I've been obsessed with Jurassic Park. And so, one year for Halloween, my mom bought me a 3 DVD case of Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and Jurassic Park 3. And I watched those all the time. And I was so excited when Jurassic World came out in 2015 because that was a new entry to the Jurassic Park franchise. And I feel like I'm one of the few that loved the Indominus Rex and the use of CGI. I think the CGI looked fine. I think it looked really good. Yes, the animatronics could have been better in some spots. But then Fallen Kingdom came out, and the thing that I was most excited about wasn't that we were seeing dinosaurs on the mainland again. It wasn't Chris Pratt. It wasn't Bryce Dallas Howard. It wasn't any of that. The only reason why I went to watch that movie was because my favorite dinosaur was in the movie. Finally, after Jurassic Park came out in 1993. About almost 30 years. About 25 years. After about 25 years, we finally got a Carnotaurus in a Jurassic Park movie. And I was so happy about that. That's probably the only reason why I went to watch the movie. I couldn't have cared less about the rest of the movie. I just wanted to see Carnotaurus. And so, since I'm telling you how much I loved all that, you could probably guess how excited I was for Camp Cretaceous to be released. But also at the same time, I was sad because we did not have Netflix, and we already had a few streaming services. Well, I decided that after a while, I wanted to watch Camp Cretaceous. So, I used my own money, and for the past couple months, we've had Netflix. And when I got Netflix, I went through and I binge watched all of Camp Cretaceous. And then I went back through and I watched it with my mom because I wanted her to see it. And now I'm watching it again because I want to experience all that again. There's just something about it that makes me feel just happy because of me being a huge Jurassic Park fan. It's catered to people like me. And so when this is where we get into spoiler territory, if you haven't seen Camp Cretaceous, click off the video, go watch it. I promise you won't be disappointed at all from the show. But this is where we get into spoiler territories and everything else. So please don't watch the video if you haven't seen it because I don't want to spoil it for y'all. Alright. So this is what I was wanting to talk about. On Reddit, in the subreddit r/Camp Cretaceous, a user by the name of Significant Ear 1422 made a post saying, "What is the best Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous episode and why?" I started thinking about it, and I already knew what my answer was, and I knew why, but I never thought deeply about why it was my favorite. And Season 3, Episode 6 is hands down my favorite episode And I want to explain why, because I feel like this is very interesting and everyone should know about this. Because I don't know how many people have really thought about this. In episode 6 of season 3 of Camp Cretaceous, Sammy has been, I guess you could say, quilled by the Scorpius Rex with its poisonous quills. And Yaz is running to get the antidote. And by the end of the episode, it appears that Sammy has died. But then she awakens and she's not dead. If that makes sense. Just putting it blunt and light, they thought she died at the end, but she didn't. And what I loved about the whole episode was right there at the end. And the different emotions we got to see from everybody, from all the characters. There was such a huge variety of emotions that let us dwell so far into each character, and it helped out so much with loving the characters. And I wrote about this in the subreddit. I wrote about it, and I told them I'm reading off of what I said, but I want to recap it for y'all. But what I was thinking about was, with Ben, we started off knowing Ben as the scared kid. He was scared of everything. He had all these different phobias. He was a huge germaphobe. The only reason why he's not a big germaphobe was because of Bumpy. Well, whenever in season 2, I think it was episode 6 or 7, probably, I think it was episode 6 of season 2, Ben comes back. We figured out he survived, and we figured out how he survived. And ever since that time when Ben came back, he's played tough guy, not showing fear, nothing. He doesn't let his emotions show. And so when Sammy breathes what seems to be her final breath, we see Ben turn around, put his hand over his mouth, and just he can't look. He won't look. Ben, that entire time, had showed no fear to anyone. He did not want to be seen as a scared kid anymore. So he put on the bravest face he could, never showed fear, and just seemed like this strong, independent kid. But when he thought Sammy had died, this was probably the first time he had experienced what he thought was one of his friends dying. And so he never wanted to show fear. He never wanted to show he was scared. He never wanted to show he was sad or close to crying. So what he does is he turns away and puts his hand over his mouth, because when people put their hand over their mouth, it's typically to stop themselves from crying. And we can see there that he is scared. He is beyond scared. He's really sad, and he's terrified. So he turns around, so he doesn't let anyone see these emotions coming from him. And this is huge for his character, because it shows character development that even though he puts on this brave face, he is still just a kid. He's still a kid. He's still scared, like everybody else. And it helps to show how much he does care, because throughout the rest of the series, he shows no emotional connection to them and keeps stating that they're not friends, because whenever they leave the island and they go back home, they'll likely never see each other again, and they'll never talk to each other again. But this shows one moment where he actually has connected to them and loves them, but he never showed it until now. And with Darius and Brooklyn, we see Darius and Brooklyn, whenever they think she's died, they embrace each other, they hug each other, and they essentially, what you would say, buried their faces in each other's neck. At least that's what Brooklyn did with Darius, while Darius watched Sammy with tears in his eyes. Ever since the events of Jurassic World and them being left on the island, we've seen that Brooklyn and Darius's relationship has started to increase and strengthen. Whenever they needed to talk to someone or just confront a problem they had, they didn't go to anyone else. If they could, they went to each other. When Brooklyn had problems, she went to talk to Darius. And Darius did the same with Brooklyn. When he had a problem, he went to Brooklyn. And their relationship had strengthened so much that they didn't even think. They immediately went to embrace each other because that's where their relationship is at. They care for each other and they're embracing each other to help each other. And that's what I love about their reactions, is you can see the humanity in them where it is truly hard for them to handle, and you get the sense that, again, they are kids and they can't deal with this alone. This is very traumatizing for them. This is essentially, again, what would be probably their first time of losing a loved one. Not for Darius, but Darius is reliving this all over again. That's what is shocking about that for him, is he never wanted to relive this. He lost his father to an illness, and now he thinks he's losing Sammy. He thinks he's lost Sammy. And you can see that he's really trying to hold it together for them. Excuse me. And then we have Kenji. Kenji has never done a single piece of hard work in his life before the events of Camp Cretaceous. He never worked. He never lifted a finger. He always had someone else to do the things that he should have. He never cared for anyone, and he constantly put on the act of, I only look for number one, and number one is me. And even though he shows us, we can see deep down that since he is the oldest, he's bestowed himself with the responsibility of caring for them, looking after them, because they're younger and they're smaller, and he feels that since he's the oldest one, he has to protect them and keep them safe at all costs. But now, here's Sammy on the ground, and he thinks she's just died. He feels that he just lost her. And he feels that he failed at his one job that he bestowed upon himself. And you see that he's trying to maintain his composure, but it's failing, and he puts his hand on his head like he's about to break, and you can hear soft crying. You can hear faint sobs coming from him. He's losing composure because even though he plays this macho man, he's been strong for them. He's not being strong for himself, he's being strong for them. He never let it show, but he cares for them. He has always cared for them. And so like I said, he's been protecting them. He feels that it's his duty, and now he thinks he's failed at it. And so it's just too much for him to handle, and he begins to cry. And then we get to Yaz. Yaz has the strongest response to Sammy's death, per se. This entire time, we can see that she never lets her emotions show. Ever since season 1, episode 1, she's played the macho woman card. She has no fear. She's fearless. She is strong, and she doesn't need anyone. She never needed anyone, and she never will. And as Kenji points out in episode 2 of season 2, that she always plays the macho woman card. And he tells her, he said, stop playing the macho card and let someone help you for once. And this is the point where I think she starts letting up and letting people help. This is where she truly starts to let people into her life. And since she is this world-class track star, she's never had real friends. You know, She's always had her and herself, and she's never been attached to anyone else. Until Sammy came along. Sammy seeked her out. Sammy did not know who she was. She just wanted to be her friend. And no matter how many times Yaz said, I don't want to be friends with you. I just stay away from me. I prefer being on my own. Sammy kept pursuing, and eventually they became friends. And each time it seemed like they had a low chance of survival. Yaz pushed Sammy away because she didn't want to. She never wanted to accept the fact that the people she cared about could be dying. That's why she kept pushing them away. And whenever Sammy is dying, she accepts that she loves Sammy. Sammy is like a sister to her. And she's always cared for Sammy. She openly admits it. She wails to say, don't leave me. You're my best friend. I can't do this without you. And she sobs uncontrollably. And I feel she was the closest one to Sammy. So when she started crying, it was very emotional because this was the first time that Yaz had ever let herself be openly emotional in front of all the others. This was the only time that we saw her emotions fully come through that wasn't pain. And that's what I love about this episode, is that we get so much character development between each and every character right there. And nobody can say that the directors never cared about this series, because they'd have never put in the time to make the characters the way they did. Anyways, that's what I wanted to say about season 3, episode 6 of Camp Cretaceous. Let me know what you all thought. I personally just wanted to get this off of my mind because it was something that was bugging me. And I feel like everyone should acknowledge this about the show. This show has some of the greatest characters of any series ever made. I've rarely seen shows, and I've watched a lot of shows. I rarely see shows that let their characters have this much development. And so that's what makes this so great. But I'm going to leave it here. Let me know what you guys think about these little details that the directors put in, especially their facial emotions, the facial details, how they move with it, all the work that they've put in. Let me know what you guys thought. And until next time, I'll see you later. This is Toast Gaming. Stay toasty.